Okay, this is the second time I'm taping this one because I missed a bunch of stuff on the first one. Alright, title, An Unquiet Mind, A Memoir of Moods and Madness. Okay, Redfield Jamison. This is a pretty common one people have heard about. Memoir, bipolar disorder, manic depression. It's copyright 1993, I think. 95. Publisher here, I have Vintage. Okay, the setup for this memoir is she is on staff in a mental health facility where they do studies and treat people with mood disorders, and she's studying mood disorders and fails to recognize the symptoms in herself until things get really out of hand and she's diagnosed. So that's the setup. This book is good for people who have bipolar disorder, and maybe not so much for people who know or have a family member with bipolar disorder. So pretty much just those folks that have it. And also people with bipolar disorder that have had some knowledge about the disorder and different aspects, and also a little bit of experience in time, and then I think you would be able to get the most out of this. The kind of folks that relate, well, let me go back up again who this is good for. People who are experiencing rapid cycling, people who have psychotic symptoms in extreme mood states, and if you have drug, alcohol issues. She does get into those in her experience. Also, if you recognize yourself in any of these things, convincing people that you're okay when you're not, being able to convince people you're sane when you're not, self-medicating with food, alcohol, and self-injury. She does talk about that in her experience. Also, how she would lose sight, most of us do, in extreme mood states. Because she doesn't have the, I think she has bipolar 1. Anyway, people who can relate, I would say men and women alike, particularly if you're more of the cerebral, academia, in love with words kind of person. Someone who lives in their head. Because the descriptions of the mood states are sometimes romantic, poetic accounts. Her writing seems to be from a very intellectual point of view rather than a real life experience, visceral kind of point of view. Let me find my little quote I had about this. People who, let's see, it's beautifully written, but comes off a little aloof, a little wordy, a little romantic. Living in thoughts, or people who live in thoughts and images rather than those folks who experience the world in a more immediate and physical way. So if you're more up here, I think you will be able to identify more with this. And I think I am more of a cerebral, living up in my head. I would think I am. That's crazy. I am in my head. I am not You know, everybody, there seems to be those two people that experience life differently. Analyzing, thinking, and acting, and touching, and, you know. So, and I have some memoirs that are more of the visceral experience, touching and feeling, physical kind. I'll get to later. She deals with issues also in your professional life. Do you tell your coworkers? Do you tell your boss? Do you reveal this? How it affects your professional life? She's in the mental health field, so that might be interesting to folks who are also in the mental health field, and the higher learning facilities, you know, on staff at universities, things like that. And you have to come off as clear thinking, and, you know, and you tell them you have this. You know, she was going to be taking care of people with mood disorders, and, you know, would they trust her to know how to deal with her disorder if things got out of hand? Anyway, she gets into that. She definitely was someone who was reluctant to take medication at first and messed around with it for a while on her own when she did start taking it. She was very reluctant to let go of the manias. Some people struggle with that. And, I mean, who doesn't like mania? I mean, until it gets completely out of control. And then it's no fun. But, anyway, side note. Before her memoir, she wrote Touch with Fire, which is something a lot of people have heard of. A manic depressive illness and the artistic temperament, and she goes over people who have known or suspected mood disorders who are autistic, and talks about, is there a link between the artistic temperament and mood disorders. And I have my own personal opinion, but I'll get into that when I reread that book and do a book review on that one. So, I really like this one as a in the head kind of thing. But for me, because I'm so much like that, it was almost boring. Because it was when I read the more visceral, immediate feeling people who wrote from those experiences, because I don't experience things quite as much that way. And so it was more invigorating to me. So really, everybody should give it a try. That's that. I think that's all I have to say about that one. It is written by a woman, but even though she does have relationships, to me she seems a little bit, what is that word? Androgynous, you know, in her relating her experience. So I think men can identify with her just as well as women. In fact, maybe men even more. Okay, so I'll move on.